KSJE is proud to support the 2x2x24 Sassy Run. Run 2 miles every 2 hours for 24 hours. The event will benefit Sexual Assault Services of Northwest New Mexico. It begins at 5 p.m. on Friday, June 4th at Orchard Park in downtown Farmington. Find out more online at runningguru.com. The 2x2x24 Sassy Run. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, here to meet your urgent and emergent medical needs, whether they are COVID-19 related or not. Medical emergencies happen when you least expect them. Whether it's a stroke, heart attack, illness, or injury, San Juan Regional Medical Center's caregivers are here to provide care to you and your loved ones. Find out more online at sanjuanregional.com. Ten minutes past 8 o'clock. It's Wednesday morning, May 26th, 2021. Good morning, everybody. I'm Scott Michlin. Thank you for joining me this morning here on KSJE, 90.9 FM over the air here in San Juan County, New Mexico, 103.3 FM over the air in Durango, Colorado, and streaming everywhere from our website, KSJE.com, and that includes getting to your smart speaker. Great to have you along with us, everyone. Also, welcome aboard to our viewers who are joining us on the KSJE Facebook page, our YouTube channel, or watching at KSJE on Twitter. We're glad you're here as well. Coming up in the next few moments, my monthly update from Farmington Schools Superintendent, Dr. Eugene Schmidt. Dr. Schmidt will be here with me live in the studio. We'll be talking about some of the recent graduations, of course, for Farmington School seniors, and also some of the things that have been going on during this past challenging year, and a look ahead to the next school year, of course. That conversation begins in just a few moments right here on KSJE. Then, of course, later on this hour, Dr. Mike Haddabaugh is joining me once again from the Encouragement Lab. This week, Dr. Haddabaugh's message is expect people to lie, but, and he says that but is very important. He'll explain coming up today, 8:50 a.m. right here on KSJE. Next hour, we'll be joined by Mick Hess, of course, the host of Roving with the Arts, our classical music program. Mick is playing music from Dmitri Shostakovich today, his 7th Symphony. You'll hear that on the program. It's a special 90-minute version of Roving with the Arts because it takes us to 10:30, and our local and regional author program called Right on Four Corners. Tracy Hales-Vass is speaking with the author you see on the screen right now. That's Jane Hasenmuller, about her latest book, which is called The Grief of Wisdom. It's a novel. You'll hear more about that coming up today at 10:30 when you join us on KSJE for Right on Four Corners. And don't forget, of course, in addition to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, you can join us on Instagram as well. We have a partly cloudy morning outside our studios this morning, 58 degrees in Farmington at the moment. We are expecting a mostly cloudy day today, a bit cooler, 78 for a high. Overnight tonight, partly cloudy skies with a low of 44. Sunshine returns on Thursday with a high of 81 tomorrow, clear and 47 Thursday night. It'll be sunny and 85 on Friday. 51 degrees Friday night. On Saturday, mostly sunny with a high of 87 and a low of 54. And maybe some partly sunny skies on Sunday with a high of 85 and a low of 52 before a chance of showers in the forecast for early next week. Joining me this morning to give us an update on things that are going on with Farmington Schools. He is back in the studio, which is great to see. Dr. Eugene Schmidt, the Superintendent of Schools with the Farmington School District, is here with me this morning. Dr. Schmidt, good morning.
Scott, it is a good morning, and I appreciate the fact that I'm trying to remember, it was like February of 2020, the last time I actually sat in the studio with you. It's just been forever.
I think that might be true, yes, because everything kind of shut down in mid-March, pardon me. So anyway, yeah, you are right. So this is over a year. But
yes, and so in any number of shows from my home office or my school office.
You can't escape. We still tracked you down wherever you were, so that's okay. But it's great to have you back here in person, Dr. Schmidt.
It's good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming coming in, and it has been quite a year, and that's, I think, part of what we'll talk about today, and some of the celebrations and some of the other things and the challenges, I guess, that 2020, 2021 will go down in history as. But I guess first and foremost, as we're looking at the screen, you were very busy last week because you attended numerous graduations from the district.
Yeah, 4 graduations and a moving on ceremony, and
right.
any number of other, I'll call her not lesser of importance, but because everything you do to end the school year is important, but really 4 very fun and interesting graduations that we'll talk about a little bit today. But first, with permission, I just want to say, it's been a year unlike any other in my career. A year ago, 2020 was like maybe 6 weeks, but now a whole year of virtual learning and growing the partnerships that made that possible. So I just want to begin today's show by, it's the day before the last day of school. Thursday is our last day, so one more day to celebrate school with kids. But I want to give a shout out to not only teachers, students, school administrators, but the parents have really been a wonderful partner, going back forever, because they're always the first teachers, but really at graduation, when some of the questions were asked, parents stand up and be proud, and they've really stepped up to help us, as has our community. So I want to begin your show by just saying thanks to everybody, because without everybody it wouldn't have been possible.
Very true. And shout out to all the folks that you mentioned. And again, your sentiments are very similar to the other superintendents I've talked to. And I think all of you have said it's unprecedented this past year during all of your careers. And certainly for all of us, I think, none of us have lived through a pandemic, but now we have. So
now we have.
There you go. But certainly very different graduations this year than even last year. And that's to be, again, commended because of the work of the community to kind of get things safely reopened and to allow some in-person audience members at your graduation ceremonies for your seniors.
Yes, and I would say that there's a lot of thank yous, and certainly, we have to begin with the governor's office, who could have said, stay in person or stay virtual like you were the year before. But we've learned a lot about the pandemic over time and how to be safe. Certainly the vaccinations, which gets me in your office without my mask today, is that there's been just, I think, a nice response to the state's call to, get vaccinated, be careful, wear a mask if you're not. And so people who attended the graduation ceremonies were really respectful of how we tried to pose that by grouping families, by being careful. All of the hugging and celebrating took place in the parking lot or people's homes, as opposed to maybe sometimes in the past when people came down to the field. But the big thing is that what I have seen from these 4 classes, the celebrations of being in person, every school, every class has a personality. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about the actual classes, but just in the graduation, just the thought itself, for all kids, how much self-motivation has been learned or taken place. I remember the Max Bales, who gave his celebratory talk as a valedictorian. One of his comments was, well, and you got yourself up. And every day for the last 180 days, kids all across the district, certainly staff included, people got up, self-motivated, and did a lot of individualized learning that you could have chosen not to do. And so for all of our seniors and certainly all of our students, good for you to have that personal character trait of, maybe this is a year that I won't rely upon somebody to motivate me. I will motivate myself. And so I'm going to get up, I'm going to do the work, and it's going to be virtual and lonely a good many times, but it's just, that itself is a celebration, that I want to thank all my kids and my staff for, because you went out there and they did it. And so when, all 4 graduations, it's very traditional. The last thing that the class president, after the tassel thing, is we did it. And
that's right.
And there's a lot of we did it out there that was a one-to-one, a student motivating, doing it that for themselves. So anyhow,
yes.
If I can jump into graduation for a little bit again.
You bet.
Just we appreciate and admire the seniors. They really stepped up. I want to say Piedra Vista, was awarded something in the neighborhood of $10 million in scholarships. Farmington
Amazing.
High, more than $8 million. Even our own San Juan College High School, that is so important to this campus, over $2 million in scholarships. And so that speaks well of a class in a year of isolation to still work with the faith counselors and self-advocate and go out and chase the money. So it's a nice reward at the end of this year to have, as a district, close to $20 million in scholarships, and probably more will be awarded over the summer. So let me talk just about a couple of quick things.
Sure. No, and congratulations to those students, because that's remarkable, I think, those numbers when we hear them.
It is.
Wonderful.
And I think the other remarkable story, we'll talk about San Juan College High School, but both Piedra Vista and Farmington High also had students that graduated from San Juan College with an AA or SA. So it's or AS. It's not something that's just particular to San Juan College High School.
Right.
It is something that any motivated high school student could do. But first, for Piedra Vista, for those of you who are not live streaming today, we have some pictures of our favorite announcer of names.
Dr. Schmidt has snuck a couple pictures of me into his presentation this morning, everyone. Thank you for that. That's at least a flattering picture, so thank you for sharing that one, not the other ones.
Well,
that's kind of you.
We do appreciate that. But for those of you who are not video streaming live, again, I shared some of the class mottos.
Yes, right.
And it's just fun, the things that they come with. Piedra Vista, and would love to have you read these, Scott, but Piedra Vista graduated 319 seniors, and share their motto with our group.
Their motto at Piedra Vista is, some have a story, some have a legacy, we had a pandemic. Top that.
Yes, and top that, because that will be something that they will still be reflecting upon and laughing about 10 years from now when they come back for their
I sure hope so.
reunion.
Yes.
And but
very good.
The message there is the word legacy and pandemic, and top that. This tells us, this class statement is, nothing's going to keep us down.
Right,
It is just, we will persevere right on through what would be the worst of things. And so good for that.
Right, very good.
Farmington High graduated 270 seniors, and would welcome you to share their motto.
Their motto, I wish there was a way to know when you're in the good old days before you've actually left them.
So think about that for a moment, and that is the class that it seems to me they're saying is that we enjoy the moment, and the moment is that good moment in time. So it's
no
fun
matter what.
No matter what,
right?
And so it's just fun that they have piqued our humor a little bit. They have chosen to tease each other, but also they're making a statement.
Right. Well, and again, this year, personally speaking, I think I lucked out being at Piedra Vista's graduation as opposed to Farmington High's graduation, because the weather both nights was a little different, as I recall, from that week. So you were at both, so you got to experience the whole range of seasons, I would say, during the graduation ceremonies, Tuesday and Thursday.
Yes, in fact, Scorp Radio interviewed me after the ceremony, and they well, what'd you think about it? And I think my comment was, I swam all the way through it.
That's what you needed to do. That's true. Weather was a little uncooperative, we'll say.
A little bit rainy
for Farmington, but again, they went through it and persevered. Now they have a great story to tell.
Yes, we'll have a great story.
There you are. The other ones that we could talk about, the graduations, of course, San Juan College High School in Rocinante.
Yeah, and the story just keeps growing, because San Juan College graduated 70 seniors, and it's really exciting. It's their second year, as we're about to learn in another slide or two, but the legacy grows, you know, the
Right.
traditions grow, and
this was their first in-person graduation,
this
if I
was-
could add that.
This was their first, and I want to compliment you, because for the listeners that maybe didn't attend San Juan College High School, you were the announcer of the names, and for which
Yes.
we appreciate as well. So
I was there in person, and I was there virtually last year, so I appreciate them continuing to ask me to help out, so it's always great. And their slogan
Yes.
was, just Google it.
yes, and isn't that a step into technology and virtual learning and
Right.
things that if you want to know about their class, or their class saying that their research now is, you know, we begin to shift away from libraries and things and do more things online, but it is fun to go on the San Juan College High School and look at their website. Just Google
Definitely.
it.
That's right.
But it's a great story, and one that they will laugh about when their reunion comes, because 10 years from now, we won't know what a Google was.
Probably.
You know,
That's true.
It'll be something new that...
Very true. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Schmidt, but all 70 of these San Juan College High School students graduated the day before from San Juan College High School, and then the next day they took part in the virtual San Juan College graduation, and that's where they got their college degrees, wherever
Yes.
it was a certificate or a degree.
Yes, I was really pleased and proud of this class, because 45 of these students did receive either an AA or AS. I'm knowledgeable that 3 students got multiple degrees.
Wow.
You know, like 2 AAs and a high school diploma. And I'm thinking, could I have done that when I was 18 years old? And the maturity and the confidence of going to college, graduating with 1, 2, 3 degrees, it's a remarkable story.
Indeed, indeed. And then the others, I guess, will transfer maybe to a 4-year
Yes.
institution for and continue their education, but doing it a couple years earlier than their peers.
Yes, and we talked a little bit about the scholarships, but we could also talk about the number of kids across the district that were accepted into the University of New Mexico, what they call their BA bachelor's to MD program. So literally at least 3 of our students, 2 from San Juan College High School, are going to college already knowing that they've been accepted into the medical doctor program.
Terrific. Wonderful. Look at that. That's terrific.
And again, Rosinante is certainly one of my favorites. This year they rolled through 38 graduates, and not in any of these statistics any number of students graduated early. Kids start graduating in October, November,
True.
December, because kids have different numbers of requirements. But Rosinante in particular has a great family feel to it. So I'd love to have you share their story.
Definitely. Their slogan and motto this year was, "The struggle you're in today is developing the strength you'll need for tomorrow."
Yes, and it's a good motto for all of our schools, but particularly this group of kids who just seem to have a different life story. And every life story is interesting, but
True.
but good for the ones that have strength and persevere and just keep carrying on, as the Brits would say.
That's exactly. But again, congratulations to all the seniors, and really great to share their stories and to celebrate with them. And I don't know about you, Dr. Schmidt, but I think I noticed, at least at the graduations I was a part of, that I looked out in the audience and at the class, and there was a lot of people looking around, I think, just to enjoy gathering together, the ability to gather together, which we have not been able to do for these 15 months or more. So I think just folks were enjoying being together. I know I was.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because we practice social distance for those who were not in attendance, but I really did think that the way that the pacing of the graduations allowed for kids to just have that joyful moment where they, in fact, I think it was Principal Keenan that said, take a moment, because this is the first time you've all been in the same place at one time.
No kidding. It's true. That's right.
Probably since March of 2020, but
right.
Just that opportunity to say, take a moment and think about this, because this is really what you've been waiting for. This is why you self-motivated and got up and did your work.
Right.
and persevered. So it's a great story, and one that we will be appreciative of this group of kids for a long time.
Very true, very true. This was Farmington High School's 114th graduation, Dr. Schmidt?
Yeah, as a community, our 114th graduation, and it's remarkable thinking that...
I don't remember the first one. Before you ask, I'm just going to tell you. That was before my time.
Well, 1907 wasn't so long ago in geologic time.
No, true.
But
how about that? What a great tradition, though, for our community, right?
Yeah, that's a long line of kids coming through, and what we know is that's parents, grandparents, great-grandparents that probably were in attendance, that were part of that story. In fact, it's always fun because I was talking to Gerald Bonds, who celebrated his 60th teacher contract, and I was at that ceremony, and he was reminding me that he had been in 3 different Farmington high schools,
over those years.
And so that's just kind of a reflection. We've been here a long time.
Right.
3 different Farmington high schools along the way. So it's a great story, and the stories grow because Rosinante, not only was it their 35th graduation, it was also the 35th anniversary of their school.
How about that?
And so float back somewhere into whatever 35 years ago from today was.
Right.
They opened that school, and it has served the community well for students who look for a different way of learning and graduating through. And all these kids go on to become great contributors.
Right.
San Juan College High School, their second graduation ever, first one in person. Every class, because this is my fifth year for graduation for those people who, well, how long has that guy been here? Well, this is my 5th graduating ceremony, and every class has personality we talked about, but leaves legacies and sets traditions or builds on those traditions. And so I appreciate all of the seniors in this year's class of 21 for doing their part, and certainly their part is persevering in an isolated, remote world. And so, there's a lesson for us. The other kinds of things is that the graduation ceremonies aren't over. Students will continue to graduate. In a slide or two, we'll talk about, so how many kids started the year, how many kids finished. There are always a few kids that towards the end miss a class or a credit or 2 or maybe an assignment. So we will continue to be graduating class of 21 all the way through August of this year. And
that's not unique to this year, pardon me for interrupting. That happens even when we're meeting in person.
Yes.
In non-pandemic years, right? That you offer these catch-up classes or whatever a senior would need to fulfill their requirements to graduate over the summer.
Yeah, and curiously, I would say that there may be more leftover, we'll call them super seniors, in a traditional year when we were actually at school.
Right.
That that spirit of procrastination sometimes kicks in, but this class seemed to be particularly motivated, and I do expect that graduation list to continue.
Very good. We can take a look at the graduation rates that you have compiled for us this morning, and so talk a little bit about some of that compared to 2 other years. And so this is interesting, because I know sometimes, and I think some of the data that's been collected this past year may have a little asterisk next to it, right? That 2020 is going to be a little weird compared to the other in-person years. It's really hard to compare apples to apples in some of this data, isn't it?
Yes, and as an example, for those who are not virtual, I brought a graph that showed the expected number of graduates, and San Juan College High School was 66. But a moment ago, I just said 70 graduated. And people say, well, how did that happen? And sometimes what happens is people can choose to graduate early. Some people, in fact, all 4 of these high schools in Farmington had kids who, sped their way along and chose to graduate early. So we get to break traditions. And some kids said, you know what? I just want to get to college or beyond. And so some kids will scurry through their 4 years of high school in in 2 or 3. So
Right.
it's a fun story. But
Very good.
But for the community, this is a benchmark that we rate our school's success. Our mission, our why in that golden circle is to graduate kids that are college, career, or workforce ready. And we see by these numbers of, we talked about 319, 270, 70, 38. These are kids we're pushing out. They're ready. Mm-hmm. There's a few more that we will add to the list, but the graduation rates for Farmington as a community has been going up in the 5 years that I've been here. So we will continue to monitor that.
Very good. And it looks to me like the numbers are on a bit of an upswing after last year, which is maybe nice for you to see too, when we talk about, I guess, enrollments and dropout rates and graduation rates, things like that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that question, because what Scott is referring to is we have some bar charts that we're showing, and that over the last 3 years, the 17, 18, 19 school years, we were hitting up in the low 80 percentiles. 2020, the year ago when this pandemic was first unleashed on us, the graduation rate dropped a little bit. Mm-hmm. But this year, with the numbers that I'm seeing, I'm optimistic that we're going to hit back into the 80s, which is higher than the New Mexico average and comparable to the national average. And that's how we judge ourselves. How are we doing with the nation?
Right.
We want to do better, but we first got to meet or exceed before we can
Right.
do the better.
And I know that's a whole other show we could be talking about, about that other 20%,
Yes.
And I know that concerns you. You spend a lot of time and your administrators working on, how do we recapture that 20% that for whatever reason decides that they're not going to graduate for whatever reason.
Yes, and I'll say that San Juan College has been a great partner and continues to be part of our future, because we see the need for the 18 to 20% that maybe were not marching this past week, maybe are more interested in the world of work, and so we need to connect them with dual college career-bound courses or certification. So that's a conversation that I look forward to continuing with Dr. Pendergrass, is how can we leverage the college's dual credit career path courses as a way of motivating kids to stay.
And that's a great option, I think, for a lot of these kids, students that we're talking about. And of course, it's not just a problem unique to Farmington schools. It's in every district across the state, probably in every state across the country, right? They're dealing with some of these students who just don't see where they fit and are looking for that option.
Yeah, relevance and purpose, I think, are 2 words that I would connect with some of the kids that haven't finished in the 4-year cycle. Is we have to help them understand why high school, that experience, makes for a better tomorrow. We go back to that.
And there is data that supports that, for sure.
So we go back to that earlier graduation phrase about the struggles of today prepare us for tomorrow. And so that is the call sign that I would use to a lot of our kids that maybe didn't finish on time, is that there is a better tomorrow, that we are strengthened with the struggles that we have today.
Very true, very true. So, Dr. Schmidt, what have we learned over the last year? Is there any takeaways that we have from this crazy year and a half or so that we've all been through together, virtually?
Yes, and I would say that resiliency, strength, it's a credit to not only our students and staff, but it's a credit to our community. Businesses have suffered. Families' lives have been disrupted. Jobs have been lost. So as I celebrate the strength and perseverance, resiliency of my students and staff, I really share that with the community, is that all of us are different a year later. And all of us, I think, are a lot stronger. We have learned things about ourselves, that the one class motto, we had the pandemic top that.
Right.
I think with PVs.
Yes.
And so that's a statement about us and life, is that we have proven to ourselves that something terrible can't keep us down. And so I just think that's a lesson that people will say, well, we had the pandemic, what your experience is nothing. we can make it through these. And what was it? The possible can be done today. The impossible will take a couple more days to do the impossible. So that's a lesson that we have learned. For my teachers and school leaders, really proud of how they have reimagined and rethought what learning can look like, because you don't get to sit in front of 25 people in a classroom. You're sitting in front of or standing in front of 25 in a Zoom world or a GoToMeeting or a Microsoft meeting world. So it's now we have the confidence to say, maybe we don't need a snow day, that we can just jump into remote right away, and we can adapt. And so the learning to adapt, and I'll say, think about the dinosaurs that maybe didn't adapt. We are living in a world where we need to adapt and grow all the time. More is expected, and things different are expected. And so that's a thing I think we've learned. You may get some letters from the snow day aficionados out there, Dr. Schmidt, who are pro snow day, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, in fact, I'm amused because yesterday I got a call from a parent who said, well, we were remote learners, and you gave us a virtual remote play day.
Oh.
We would have liked to have joined the actual in-person play day. And so, we were not able to do that because right now I'm still not mixing cohorts of people.
Right, you can't do that yet. That's right.
I've got 2 more days or so. Actually, tomorrow's my last day, but to make sure that kids are safe. But,
that's right.
So anyhow, parents as partners, we've talked a little bit about that.
Right, and I think maybe parents have greater understanding of the work of teachers.
Yes.
And maybe respect and appreciation for the work of teachers after having to maybe be kind of part parent, part teacher during this year.
Yes, I would say appreciation and understanding would be things that, but the partnership was important. The thing that many people wait for was reintroducing sports, and there's...
And those continue, right? Even though your last day of classes is tomorrow, I know the sports schedules go on into what, July, June?
Into June, which is before we wrap up spring sports. And so that will be something that I continue to watch with curiosity and interest, as it's like an extended part of the school year now.
Right, but great to see them back on the field.
It is great to see them back. And other kinds of things that we have learned is that virtual education, until the next thing comes along, is here to stay, and that we as a district will have a responsibility to respond to the customer, our students and families that choose to continue to be comfortable in a virtual world. And so that will be something that we will think about and say, what can we do to improve that experience over the summer? And then maybe one more thing is that a year ago, we didn't know what a Zoom was.
Right.
And now people Zoom all the time.
Very true.
And so that's something that shows that we can think and act differently as a society and use it to our benefit. So it will be interesting because, certainly any number of school experiences are in the travel to go to professional learning, and Zoom has taught us that maybe we don't need to do as much business travel as the past, or we prioritize the importance of.
Right.
That a year ago, 2 years ago, we might have just been, we would go because it's expected. Well, now we say, is the value of that travel time, is that better spent in the district than the actual travel time? So that will be, our behaviors will change.
I agree. And I think a lot of conferences, too, have maybe rethought that whole idea, too. Do we need to have a big in-person, multi-day gathering, or can we do maybe 5 days or 3 days of online webinars or seminars or things like that?
Yes, and in fact, I will share with the community that I will begin posting. I've done several national presentations in the last month or so. One was for Performance Excellence, Partnership and Excellence, which is a Baldridge group, but they span over the 50 states and territories, and I was one of their keynote speakers, and didn't have to go to Ohio. I could do it from my office. And so it tells us that people are interested in the message, and I can deliver that message without having to leave Farmington, which I'm enjoying.
Right. Well, and congratulations. You kind of glossed over that pretty quickly, but that's a big honor, I think, to be
Yeah.
selected for that group.
It's a fun deal to talk about how
yes.
Farmington uses not only the Baldrige framework, but other kinds of structures that are used to try and understand yourself.
Right. And with results.
With results,
I would say.
Very, very positive.
That certainly hold up when you look at it, so that's wonderful. Well, you've got some other things going on as we get to our last few moments together this morning, Dr. Schmidt. A board retreat is coming up.
Yeah, in fact, as soon as I leave the radio station, I'll be racing back to the office to meet with the board to do our annual retreat. And there's a number of things that are important to the community. We've already talked a little bit about our district. Our mission is to produce graduates who are college, career, and workforce ready. And it was fun watching the graduations. I saw any number of our students wearing apparel that said, "I'm off to the Marines, I'm off to join the Army," and have already been signed in. We have kids going all across the country. They talked about Yale and Oregon and other kind of, border to border, sea to sea. Our kids are scattering, and it's just a wonderful story. But the board will be thinking about that. How can we build on this thing called Farmington? And how do we do it in what we call the Farmington way? Because I think we figured out some things along those 114 years, Scott, that,
yes, right.
that suggest that we can take students for our 13 years that we're entrusted with them and send them out to the college and work world in a readiness point of view. So the board will be talking about that today. And also, the board will be re-examining what we call our 4 critical commitments. In the past, I've called these pillars of success. And so just be watching the district's webpage, and I'll be talking about these after the retreat today. And then just to kind of wrap up, not knowing how much time you're going to give me.
Just a couple minutes, but yes.
But you never let down. Yesterday's over, tomorrow begins. And we hardly have time for today. But we're going to be looking at, so what do we do in 21-22 school year? And we talked a little bit about, we need to think, what does remote learning look like as larger quantities of kids would like to come back to in-person? How do we continue to provide a virtual learning opportunity for those that choose to do that? I want to say that when we come back in the fall, it's never going to be the same. It's whatever the new normal is, Scott. And if you were to ask me, what does that mean? I'd say, I have no idea.
Right.
But we have to...
Well, I think we've learned that we can predict what we think normal is going to be like, but usually it turns out to be a little bit different. So I think you're very smart to say, we'll wait and see what we get.
Yes, I think that a critical component will be in July, when I expect the governor to say, New Mexico, you're open for business. And
we have enough vaccinated folks that we can do that, yes.
We won't have to worry about things like schools being on watch lists for closures, or kids needing to worry about wearing masks in the classroom. We need to get past that.
Right.
And then so
that'll make a big change.
Community, you can help me by vaccinating, by the way, but continuing to practice good habits. But if what you liked in the past, I can't give that to you. What we come back to in the fall is going to be something new and a little bit different in how the school operates. And so be ready for that.
But certainly you're hoping for face-to-face with that virtual option for folks. And then what the nitty-gritty details are is still to be determined.
Yeah, my promise to the community is we will be open for business.
There you go.
But, just yet what that business looks like is we'll know more in July.
Excellent.
A couple other quick things, Scott, just to share is that I I want and need to do better telling stories. We had a lot of amazing teacher stories of their adaptability and how they reached out to families, how families helped. And so I will be looking for ways to increase our media exposure, and certainly I hope to get invited back in the fall to continue these talks, and
indeed,
perhaps even through the summer. And then maybe my last thought is that we'll be running a bond, and then for those of you who are not virtual, if I can skip to the last slide, because I just want to celebrate your
another picture of me. Look at that.
But Scott is really you're such a community-minded person, and people that don't maybe know as much about your visibility. And I posted a picture of Scott.
Some might think I'm too visible, for one thing, but that's another story, perhaps. But thank you for saying that.
Anyhow, I took a picture of you. You were doing. The community had a downtown reopening event. The Kiwanis hosted a little celebration of the pioneers, and I want to say you played the part of one of the Bowman brothers.
I did.
So maybe
that's
you can
right.
tell us a little.
I was Alex Bowman, and he was one of the owners of the Bowman Brothers drugstore, an early drugstore in downtown Farmington back in the late, I would say 1880s. And, we were downtown, but I will say I was standing right next to the Schmidts, Dr. Schmidt and his beautiful wife, Wendy, who were also taking part in this event. And a lot of other folks as well.
Yes.
So, but it was, again, I think May 1st, and again, great to see folks downtown, folks in safe groups, folks being able to gather safely. Just one of those, again, just things that maybe kind of made me take a nice deep sigh of relief to say, wow, maybe we are going to get a little bit back to what we consider normal. So it was nice to be a part of.
And I would say that when you walk downtown, take a moment to look at the buildings.
Indeed.
The one on the what I would call Orchard Plaza side, there's a 1911 carved in the side of the building that we're old as a town.
Definitely.
We're old as a town, and so there's those little mementos that sometimes we get busy and do the walk through downtown. It's not
Well,
noticing.
you think about the first Farmington High School graduation, 1907, and a lot of those buildings were around that.
Yes.
Give or take a few years, but this is what the town looked like back in that time. So
Yeah, I wanted to say part of the town had to burn down in 1910, so we could build some of those brick buildings.
Very true. We all learned that during that weekend.
It's a great town and a great tradition, and you're an important part of it. So.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Dr. Schmidt, and I think again the work that you do with Farmington schools and the students and the teachers, we celebrate that every month, and we're so glad that you spent time with me to do that. So thank you.
Okay.
I look forward to seeing you next month.
Look forward to it.
In person.
In person.
There you go. Very good. That's Dr. Eugene Schmidt, everyone, Superintendent of Farmington Schools. He is my guest this morning here on